Welcome to another story made by Oracle 1. Velvet and Bayonets. In the dimly lit drawing room of the grand manor house nestled deep within the mist-wreathed forests of eastern Poland, Countess Emilia Radziwill poured another glass of amber-hued whiskey into the crystal tumbler. The fire threw flickering shadows onto the heavy velvet drapes and ornate tapestries, creating an aura that was both opulent and ominous. Outside the windows, the wind howled through the skeletal branches of ancient oaks, as if echoing the turmoil gripping the nation. It was 1942. Poland had been under the brutal occupation of the Nazi regime for over 3 years. While much of the country writhed under oppression, Countess Emilia's manor in Podlasie province stood as a fragile sanctuary, and a dangerous stage. Here, under the pretense of hospitality and high society, she entertained officers of the German Wehrmacht, their glaring eyes watching for signs of dissent, their laughter masking the deadly ideologies that had suffocated entire cities. Unknown to them, however, behind her steely gaze, Emilia plotted a rebellion, threading whispers of resistance through the silk and silver of her daily charade. Emilia Radziwill had not always been a figure of quiet defiance. Born into a lineage that dated back to the times of the Commonwealth's glory, she had grown up in a world suffused with the refined manners and privileges of Polish nobility. Yet those privileges were meaningless under the iron fist of occupation. Her family estate had been seized and requisitioned weeks after the German invasion. Her father died fighting in the initial battles while her mother and siblings were scattered, some captured, some lost to the chaos of war. Emilia had survived by weaving her paths through the malevolence engulfing her country. Her invitation list was a calculated roster of German officers, many from the SS and Gestapo branches, men wielding power and cruelty in equal measure. To host them without revealing her true loyalties required a performance of flawless grace, a mask she donned during the long, suffocating hours of conversation and alcohol-fueled anecdotes. She had mastered the art of seeming compliant while planting coded messages beneath her words, remarks that would seem innocuous to the casual ear but were precise breadcrumbs for the resistance network. Tonight, she awaited Hauptsturmführer Klaus Weber, a man infamous for his ruthlessness in the area. He was accompanied by a smaller retinue, men whose reputations chilled even those accustomed to the horrors of war. As the clock ticked towards 10, the heavy oaken door creaked open and a sentinel announced their arrival. Emilia rose, her figure draped in midnight blue velvet, the fabric glowing faintly under the candlelight. Her eyes held an unreadable expression. The officers entered, snapping military salutations from drilled fingers, their boots thudding heavily on the Persian rugs. The Countess's smile was the practiced one, warm but distant, a prelude to the delicate dance of conversation that would unfold. "Guten Abend, Herr Weber," she greeted. Her German was laced with a hint of an accent, but flawless enough to command respect. "I trust your journey was uneventful." Weber's cold eyes scanned the room before settling on her. "Countess Radziwill, your hospitality shines brighter than these wretched times," he sneered. "We might yet find Poland can surprise us." The implication was clear. A veiled reminder of the Nazi belief in their supremacy, a challenge she met with quiet defiance. "My estate has long been a resting place for weary travelers. War need not extinguish all civility," Emilia replied, pouring wine from a decanter and passing it around with the grace of a queen. The talk was at first superficial, the usual posturing and boasting about military maneuvers and conquests, and Emilia listened carefully, throwing in measured questions and comments that invited elaboration. In a corner beneath the grand staircase, a secret panel moved silently, revealing a narrow passageway. There, 2 young men in worn but clean uniforms looked up briefly, exchanging nods. These were members of the Polska Armia Krajowa resistance, the Home Army, covertly operating from beneath the veneer of Emilia's home. Her original role was more than socialite. It was intelligence gatherer, courier, facilitator of sabotage operations. She had painstakingly built this network from contacts among the local villagers, disgraced officers, and former soldiers. Information gleaned during these dinners was funneled down this passage, transcribed, and disseminated to units fighting in the forests and towns beyond. The stakes were staggering. Any suspicion, any misstep, and it would mean the death of everyone involved. But Emilia carried a silent torch for her occupied country, one tempered by the knowledge that the velvet of society could sometimes conceal the sharpest bayonets. Midway through the evening, while Weber and his men were distracted by a game of cards, Emilia excused herself with the excuse of attending to a request in the library. The heavy oak door closed softly behind her. She slipped into the adjoining corridor, deftly unlocking a small cabinet with a hidden key concealed beneath the hem of her dress. Inside lay a bundle of coded letters, maps with circled villages, and photographs of German transport routes. Her fingers trembled only slightly as she extracted a small radio transmitter concealed within a hollowed book. The hum of static filled the room as she discreetly turned the dial. "Should I proceed with logistics for next week's sabotage?" came a whispered voice from the line. "Yes," Emilia whispered back, her voice low but resolute. "The train carrying munitions will depart the station at dawn. The Home Army platoon is prepared to strike. I'll relay the signal when the officers descend the stairs after dinner." Her heart pounded as if the manor itself breathed with tension. Returning to the drawing room, she replaced the book, slipping seamlessly back into her poised hostess persona. Back among the officers, Weber's suspicion momentarily flickered at something unspoken in her demeanor. "Countess," he said, lowering his voice as he leaned closer. "Your attentiveness is curious. You seem ever watchful, as if hiding from shadows." Her smile never wavered. "Perception is the privilege of those who listen, Herr Hauptsturmführer. I listen well." The dissonance of roles. Years had refined Emilia into a master of contradictions. By day and night, the manor was a crucible of conflicting worlds. The polished dance of Nazi high command mingled with the clandestine whispers of insurgency. No one spoke freely in the presence of the enemy. Yet beneath the veneer of embroidered gowns and crystal chandeliers, the pulse of rebellion beat fiercely. The intricacies of her double life extended beyond merely gathering intelligence. She coordinated the acquisition of weapons hidden in the manor's cellar, and arranged secret rendezvous between couriers and agents risking execution with every step. She also acted as a soothing balm for the soldiers torn between orders and conscience, an occasional confidant to officers who quietly doubted the righteousness of their cause. One such officer was Lieutenant Jakob Müller, a younger man recently assigned to the region, whose face betrayed a naivete unaccustomed to the brutalities around him. His awkward glances and unease in company made him vulnerable to Emilia's subtle influence. In time, he became an unlikely source of vital information. Bits of plans here, whispers of troop movements there, shared during late-night talks cloaked as casual flirtation. Jacob's conflicted heart represented the shimmering line between innocence and complicity. Emilia recognized the dangerous game she played recruiting an enemy, but the pragmatism of warfare demanded sacrifices. Within the manor's stone walls, alliances were forged in shadows, loyalties questioned, and lives gambled for a greater cause. A night of reckoning. The trajectory of their secret war shifted when Emilia received news from a courier that the Wehrmacht planned a sweeping roundup of resistance sympathizers in the nearby town of Lomza. The operation was set for the next full moon, mere days away. Her network's survival, and the lives of hundreds, relied on swift countermeasures. In the days leading up to the crackdown, Emilia's nightly gatherings grew increasingly tense. Officers spoke of pacifying troublesome villages, their casual cruelty stirring icy rage beneath her polite nods. One night, while hosting a champagne reception for senior military staff, Emilia deftly extracted intelligence about the roundup by engaging General von Hartmann, a cold-eyed man who oversaw several occupied provinces. "I have heard disturbing rumors of resistance in this area, General," Emilia said softly, swirling her glass. "Surely you have a plan to swiftly restore order?" Von Hartmann's gaze lingered, assessing, before he replied with a chilling certainty. "Order will be restored. Those who defy us will face justice. It is regrettable, but necessary for the Reich's progress." Beneath those words lay the threat of massacre. Emilia's chest tightened, but she kept her expression serene. "That justice balances mercy," she murmured. "Surely you must consider the cost." Von Hartmann's laugh was brittle. "Mercy is a weakness we cannot afford." After the officers departed that evening, Emilia convened with the resistance members beneath the manor. The underground chamber smelled of damp earth and candle wax. Maps lay sprawled on a wooden table, pinned with markers. She pointed to the transport routes and troop concentrations. "We must disrupt their plans. The Home Army will carry out sabotage attacks to delay the sweep, but we need more." Her voice was firm, commanding. Young Tomas, a veteran of earlier skirmishes whose face bore the grime of battle, looked up. "We could destroy the railway junction outside Lomza. It would slow their advance for days." Emilia nodded. "Agreed, but we'll need precise timing. I will signal you." The plan relied on Emilia's next evening with the officers. It was a dangerous gambit. A signal given too soon, and suspicion would fall; too late, and the resistance would be crushed. The night arrived like a tempest. Thunder rumbled over the estate as rain pattered relentlessly against the manor's vast windows. The officers were gathered once again, their murmurs tinged with overconfidence. Emilia moved among them with calculated grace, all the while watching their mannerisms, calculating the exact moment to send her message. As the clock chimed midnight, the game of poker in the drawing room reached its climax. With a subtle pause in conversation, Emilia excused herself to the library, where the radio transmitter lay concealed. Fingers trembling, she keyed a series of taps into the code, a Morse signal carried invisibly on the waves. "Now," she whispered. Moments later, explosions shattered the night's monotony. Railway lines outside the manor were engulfed in fire and smoke, the signal that resistance fighters had initiated the sabotage. Alarms blared in distant barracks, echoing the chaos unleashed. Within the manor, the officers leapt from their seats, shouting orders and grasping weapons. In a quick sweep of her eyes, Emilia noted their faces: rage, confusion, disbelief, while her own heart thundered with both fear and hope. The aftermath. The next weeks were a whirlwind. The German command dispatched reinforcements, unleashed brutal reprisals on suspected sympathizers, and increased surveillance. Yet the resistance grew stronger. Emilia's manor became both a beacon and a fortress. A place where velvet and bayonets existed in uneasy harmony, and the cause of freedom demanded the utmost courage and sacrifice. With the escalation, Emilia's role became even more precarious. Her household staff shifted from silent servants to trusted operatives, bearing messages hidden in letters and glances. She organized deliveries of munitions and medicine, coordinated with neighboring resistance cells, and maintained a facade of compliance that grew thinner with each passing day. One bitter winter evening, just as frost claimed the edges of the estate's gardens, an incursion shattered the fragile peace. German soldiers, tipped by an informant, stormed the manor. Emilia's sharp instincts saved many lives that night. The secret passageways led some to safety, the hidden weapons were concealed beneath false floors, and coded documents were destroyed before captors could seize them. Emilia herself was arrested, dragged from her chamber in chains, accused of treason, conspiracy, and espionage. Presented before a military tribunal, the countess refused to betray her comrades, her silence both a shield and a sword. In the darkness of interrogation cells, her spirit remained unbroken, buoyed by the knowledge that the seeds she had planted would bear fruit beyond her own fate. Her trial was a spectacle orchestrated by the Nazis, intended to strike fear into the populace. Yet, Emilia's quiet dignity unsettled her captors. She was sentenced to life imprisonment in a fortress prison, but whispers of her bravery spread among prisoners and townsfolk alike. Across Poland, the resistance surged, inspired in no small part by stories of the noble countess who had used her wealth, status, and indomitable will to fight tyranny from within. Legacy. Years after the war's end, when Poland began to heal from its scars, tales of Countess Emilia Radziwiłł circulated as legend. Her manor, once a stage of both cultivated elegance and hidden war, stood as a testament to courage and cunning. Friends and survivors ensured her story was told. A woman who wielded velvet and bayonets with equal mastery, whose loyalty was to her homeland above all else. In a modest garden within the estate, roses bloomed, a symbol of resilience amid destruction. Visitors often paused by the statue erected in her honor, a figure clad in flowing robes, eyes set firmly on the horizon. To some, she was a noblewoman, to others, a spy, a rebel. But to all who knew her story, Emilia Radziwiłł was a beacon of hope, a reminder that even in the darkest times, courage could be found behind the most unexpected masks. For more stories, like and subscribe.